Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to get started shortly. Please introduce yourself in the chat. We're trying to get working on getting that chat enabled. So thank you to the folks that reached out. I think we're trying to get that up and running, but once we get that going, if you could please put your name and your role and any affiliation that you have, introduce yourself. We will get that up and running soon. This meeting is going to be translated into Spanish, and if you would like to listen to the Spanish channel, please click on the globe and select Spanish as your preferred language. We will also be recording this meeting in both English and Spanish and sharing it on our YouTube channel after the meeting. I am now going to hand it over to our translator, Ellis, who will be giving these instructions in Spanish. And thank you. It looks like our chat is going, so if you can please introduce yourself in the chat while our translator gives instructions, that would be great.
This is a bilingual message and will be repeated in English. Este es un mensaje bilingüe y será repetido en inglés. Muy buenas tardes. Para facilitar el acceso lingüístico, proporcionaremos interpretación simultánea entre inglés y español. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada. Si usted no es bilingüe en inglés y español, tendrá que elegir el idioma en el que desea escuchar la interpretación. Si está usando una computadora, verá un icono en forma de globo en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla que dice Interpretación. Haga clic ahí y seleccione Español. Si está usando la aplicación de Zoom en un iPad o su teléfono, busque el menú de 3 puntos en la parte superior derecha de su pantalla, haga clic en Interpretación de idiomas y elige Español. Les recordamos a los oradores que hablen una a la vez y a un paso moderado. Good afternoon. In order to facilitate language access, we will be providing simultaneous interpretation between English and Spanish. If you are bilingual, you don't have to press anything. If you are not bilingual in English and Spanish, you will have to select the language that you wish to hear the interpretation in. If you're on a PC or laptop, look for the globe icon on the bottom right that says Interpretation and select English. If you're on the Zoom application on an iPad or your phone, locate the three-dot menu on the top right, click on Language Interpretation, and then select English. We'd like to remind our speakers to please speak one at a time and at a moderate pace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellis. So the language interpretation is now available. If you would like to listen to this meeting in Spanish, please go ahead and click on the globe and get that started for yourself. And a reminder that this will be recorded in both English and Spanish and added to our YouTube channel. So with that said, good afternoon, buenas tardes, and welcome to our BuildUp California network meeting for the month of November. This is our last meeting of 2023, and we're so excited to have you here with us. November is Native American History Month, and we would like to begin this meeting with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional land of Native and Indigenous peoples, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. Now, we are going to quickly launch a Zoom poll. I am going to introduce our question. We would like to know from you who's in the room. So what best describes your role? Are you an advocate, an architect, an early care educator, a developer, a policymaker, or policy staff? Or if it's not listed, you can select other. My name is Esmeralda Martin Singh, and I am the Partnerships and Policy Manager who works on BuildUp California, which is an initiative of the Low Income Investment Fund. And we are going to close up this poll soon. It looks like we have 28 out of the 42 folks that are in the room that have participated. I'm going to wait a little bit longer so we can get some more information about who's in our space. And while we do that, I'll share a little bit more about BuildUp. So BuildUp California is a statewide network dedicated to the equitable expansion, improvement, and sustainability of early learning and care facilities. We began in 2020, and our purpose is to promote information sharing, and early learning and care facilities issues. We include TA and capacity building, and we recommend legislation and regulation changes to increase access to high quality ECE facilities. Another thing, looks like we're at 32 to 40 of 43 people have participated. So if you can please answer the question, we're gonna go ahead and share. It looks like we have about 28% of our audience right now is advocates. We have an architect, we have 5 early care educators, no developers, 4 policymakers or policy staff, and 13 other. So thank you so much for answering our quick poll. We wanted to be able to see who was in the space. One other thing I wanted to share about our team is we're really excited to share that we've recently grown, and we're happy to welcome Samantha Payton to the BuildUp California team. She joined us as a new policy and program officer and will continue to help us advocate for early care and education facilities funding and policies in California. She's going to be monitoring our chat and will introduce herself in the chat. And now I'm going to introduce our wonderful guest speakers. So I'm going to start with Mike, who is a leader in the design of play and learning environments for children. As the founding principal of Studio MLA Architects, Mike has over 30 years working through the complex design, regulatory, and construction processes that are a part of developing nurturing spaces for early care and education. Kylie is a landscape architectural associate at Studio MLA Architects, who is passionate about designing spaces that inspire creativity and connection to the natural environment. Her 3D visualization skills and plant knowledge have been instrumental in her design of sensory landscapes. And lastly, Maddie is an architectural designer at Studio MLA Architects, who are passionate about the psychological relationships between occupants and their built environment. We are so excited to have such a robust team of experts in design and architecture joining us today. Throughout the presentation, if you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A feature. We will try to get to them at the end of Studio MLA's presentation. And if we do not have time to answer all of the questions, we will be emailing email written responses to all participants after the meeting. Now I will turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Esmeralda. It's great to be here today. And we'd like to thank everybody at BuildUp California and LIF for facilitating this meeting, and thank everybody in the webinar for joining us today. We know that we have a wide range of participants, and everybody is engaged in one way or another with early education. So we're going to give a relatively broad presentation, and if you have specific questions, as Esmeralda said, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. We're going to talk a little bit about design process and how we go about, thinking about figuring out what's important and what the best options are for any given project, developing goals, thinking about best practice, and then we'll go through a couple of case studies as well. Studio MLA is a firm that's been around since 2006. Early education, designing indoor and outdoor environments for children is that's our wheelhouse. That's what we do mostly, and we get to work with people all over the country and all over the world. We learn a lot from our clients and our collaborators. And we're happy to share some information today, and hopefully we'll learn from you and you'll learn a few things from us. As we think about the design process, we sort of break it down into these 6 steps. Everybody talks about this a little bit differently, but we feel like it's really important to get in and listen to the people on the ground, the people who are actually working with the children, and even the children and families. We've done focus groups with preschoolers before and gotten some great feedback. We need to really understand the goals of the project. What kinds of improvements do you feel are necessary? What kinds of things are being, is your situation requiring of you? And then think about that over the long term, or at least over a term that's logical, so that you can implement changes in a consistent, thoughtful, mindful way. The first step, needs assessment, is really about understanding, where you are today, or where the client, the center, the community is, and what are the challenges and opportunities that need to be addressed as a part of a design and construction project. And this can vary, widely from situation to situation and culture to culture and community to community. But there are consistent, questions that we ask and try to have answered. We're trying to understand what the needs are of the community, what the goals are, where improvements can be made, where capacity can be increased, teacher satisfaction can be upgraded. Just ways to make the process of the life of the child care center and the way that you engage families, the way that children develop. What can we really do to make improvements there? The second step has to do with thinking about what resources do you have available, and this can be human resources, volunteers, grants, different ways of being creative about making improvements. And then what's your situation in terms of your physical space, the land or the building or the outdoor space that you're dealing with, so that we can make sure that the recommendations that we're developing together, as we're sort of collaborating and co-creating solutions for the challenges that are out there, so that we can make sure that those are appropriate, and that you're investing your valuable time and resources in a way that makes sense over time.
So there can be a range of in scale for types of improvements. Large improvements could be a ground up new building or a new playground, or it could be a full gut renovation where you strip everything away and start from there. This could also include work to the infrastructure, like adding new equipment or upgrading building systems. Medium interventions and improvements could be something a little bit less intensive. For example, converting an infant classroom to a toddler classroom or adding plumbing fixtures. And small improvements can take the form of low-cost interventions such as new finishes, furniture, lighting, and more. Master planning as a part of the design process can also come at different scales. So Studio MLA worked on a French bilingual school in San Francisco, the Bay Area, that had 3 campuses and served early education through 12th grade. Each campus had various opportunities and challenges. So we worked with the school through planning exercises, meetings, parent and student surveys, and in-person focus groups to get valuable feedback. And we used that to develop a range of interventions at each location, and then prioritize them into a comprehensive schedule that would be feasible given fundraising and construction restraints. We have finished the 2021 master plan, and the school is currently working on fundraising and working with the city of Sausalito, one of their campuses, for their long-term lease.
Yeah, so as Maddie mentioned, master planning can happen on various scales, and the Lycée project was a large-scale master plan, but an example of a small-scale project that we worked on was for Santa Rosa Junior College, where we focused on redesigning 7 play areas and provided them with a comprehensive plan that they were able to use as a tool to determine project phasing and prioritization strategies for their future development. They are currently in the process of applying for a grant for future funding, and we are working with them to develop the rest of the documents through construction administration. And Mike will talk a little bit about prioritization strategies.
So as we think about the master plan, in parallel with that, we're helping to understand what needs to happen first. And that could be driven by available funding. It could be that we have a grant or we have funding to do one piece of the project. It also could be that there are potentially health and safety issues that need to be addressed urgently. It could be that there's a new demand or a new program. Maybe there's a school age program that needs to start up, and those areas get prioritized. One of the key things, though, is that in the master plan, we're setting things up so that we're not doing something in a first phase, which makes a second or third phase either more difficult or more expensive, or anything like that. So we're really trying to do it in a logical way, and we do feel like thinking through the whole process and really understanding how to maximize the potential of a site is important. And then it's okay if it doesn't all happen at once. I think that's as long as you can have a logical way of going about it, you can get from point A to point B, within your means and within a reasonable time frame.
So the implementation strategy and design process typically begins with a visioning workshop and close collaboration with the center's owners to understand more about their community, goals, and program needs. As each design phase progresses, we work closely with the owner and faculty and staff to develop the design in more detail and ensure that the design aligns with their budget. By the time you get to the construction documentation phase, you'll have a design package that can be handed over to contractors to get their bid. And once that bidder is selected, it'll go into the construction process where the landscape architect or architect's main responsibility is to ensure that the project is being constructed per the drawings.
So every project.
Sorry, Mike,
Sorry,
you want to
Maddie,
go ahead?
There you go.
All right. Our next section is all about design goals, and we'll go through 6 big picture goals. One of the first design elements users experience is how they are welcomed into the building. A sense of welcoming is important in nearly all buildings, but especially in early childhood education centers. This is often children's first formal experience at school, and it's common for kids to experience separation anxiety when a parent drops them off. Creating a building that feels friendly can go a long way. This can be at the main entrance, as well as individual classrooms and circulation between the two. You can achieve this by using soft palette and lighting, warm tones, cozy seating, open sight lines, and natural light.
Another primary goal in early childcare design is to prioritize safety and security. So in this photo, it's showing the entrance to a center that not only functions as a family community space, but also ensures safety with a pergola covered pickup and drop off area with a large swinging gate. The fence not only serves as a licensing requirement, but also is looked at in a playful way by incorporating colorful plexiglass.
We want to be purposeful about classroom layout to incorporate stations that are important to the curriculum. For example, art corners, STEM counters, things like that. Supporting the program can be achieved by using intentional materials, right? So for example, in the picture, we have a wet area, and you can use tiled walls behind the sink and sheet linoleum floors. You can also use different lighting to define zones. For example, reading nooks or cozy corners with a specialty fixture or pendant.
Maddie, I'm just going to interject really quickly. Just
Sure.
There's a message in the chat just to slow down the cadence of the speaking for the interpreter.
Yep.
Thank you.
So back to program and pedagogy. We want to be, oh no, we're on the next one, sorry. Attention to child scale. Designing for children's spaces should include attention to child scale, right? In the photo, you can see this stage raised up a few steps with a lowered ceiling height to create an alcove space. We also used low window heights so the kids can look out. We have art displayed at kids height and child-sized seating. incorporating natural elements and biophilia to adhere to our innate connection to nature, incorporating visual connections with nature through windows and skylights. This allows children to observe flora, fauna, and weather, especially seasonal changes, as children begin to learn about seasons and calendar months. Using operable windows to allow fresh air that provides subtle changes in air temperature, relative humidity, and airflow across the skin that mimic natural conditions. Designing with dynamic and diffuse light and shade that can change over time to create conditions that occur in nature, and using natural materials and elements and biomorphic forms that are symbolic references to patterns and textures.
So there are many ways to create a space that is engaging and interesting. This example illustrates various features such as a dry stream bed with an interactive hand pump for the children to operate and understand water flow. There's a sand area for children to create mud, and a trike track with an arch bridge over the stream bed. This offers an environment that encourages hands-on learning about water flow and different discovery elements. So when looking at our next section is to discuss design best practices, and we've tried to focus on two main things. One, which is supporting physical, cognitive, and socio-emotional learning. And second, to create a sensory-rich learning environment. Next slide, please. Play environments support, we're going to look at physical, cognitive, and social emotional development for the infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. And Maddie is going to talk a little bit about infant development on the next slide. Thank you.
The built environment plays a critical role in childhood development. Learning for infants can take place during physical movement, like pulling up to standing and crawling. For cognitive development, they learn through movements and sensations and sensory exploration. And for social emotional behavior, learning begins by observing others and mimicking.
For the toddler age group, it's important to provide elements in the design that support their physical growth. So elements that enhance their fine motor skills, balancing, sliding. For cognitive, they're learning how to play with loose parts, exploring through music and sound, and reading. For social and emotional learning, they're learning how to share and learning more about collaborative play and making friends. And preschoolers. Kylie.
For preschoolers, it's a bit of a culmination of everything we just listed, but a little bit more advanced, right? So preschoolers learn through gross motor skills for physical activity, right? Through climbing, jumping, running, balancing. For cognition, they can learn through measuring, music, loose parts, reading. And for social and emotional, behaviors further develop through sharing, dramatic play, and social connections.
Sensory-rich play environments are incredibly important to help develop physical, cognitive, and social emotional development for these different age groups. And we're going to focus on the 8 sensory systems and how they can support that. So starting with the tactile sensory system, this plays a crucial role in early care and educational spaces by providing hands-on experiences that support the development of children's sensory processing, fine motor skills, and cognitive abilities. So understanding a center philosophy is also incredibly important, and how design can support that. In the left photo, you see the center emphasized the importance of children playing in the sand and wanted children to get messy and create mud with their hands and that hands-on learning experience. In the top right photo, you can see how selecting different plant material can provide a lot of value in creating this environment. So the girl crafted a nest with pine needles. The next sensory element is through smell, and which is really critical in early childhood for several reasons. Some of them being memory and emotion, being able to associate smell with experiences or people, which contributes to their cognitive and emotional development. And one way to incorporate this is through selecting plants that are aromatic, and a few examples are lavender, thyme, or basil. Smell is also a key sense of exploration and learning. By using smell to discover and differentiate various scents in their environment. Overall, this helps them better understand the world around them.
Soundscape. A sound is a huge part of the sensory environment. Outside is a great place to yell and be loud or provide elements for children to explore sound, like the outdoor play instruments you see in the bottom right-hand corner. Interior spaces, on the other hand, have various parameters that affect the form and quality of sound. Shaping the soundscape is often done through proportions and materials. In classrooms, area rugs and acoustic ceiling tiles will help with sound absorption and reduce reflection. Insulated walls will reduce sound transmission between loud and quiet areas. The chromescape, or the visual aspect of the sensory environment, should be rich but balanced. The goal is to create an engaging space without it being overly stimulating, balancing natural tones with more vibrant tones. However, we want to avoid overuse of deeply saturated colors like reds and yellows. For lighting, we want to use warmer tones in the 3200 to 3500 Kelvin range, as they are more welcoming than cooler tones. We use mainly direct, indirect, or indirect lights because young children tend to spend a lot of their time on their backs looking up, and we want to avoid harsh overhead lights on their eyes. All lights should be on dimmers for nap time and also for user control. For example, if it's a bright day outside, you can decrease the level of artificial light inside. And again, you can use specialty lighting like these really great pendants to define zones within the classroom. Taste can be incorporated through gardening, both inside and outside. This is a great opportunity to be an enriching part of the curriculum. Implementing gardening is a great way to introduce children to the basics of the plant life cycle, where they can explore both the smell and taste of different herbs and vegetables. At the Boston University Children's Center in the top right, we included a playground support building that opened up to their gardening area and even had a rainwater collection barrel to water the plants.
Vestibular sensory elements contribute to balance, spatial orientation, and coordination. Some opportunities for vestibular stimulation include swinging, balancing, varied terrains, and spinning elements. Next slide, please. Vestibular elements help children to develop their motor skills, enhance focus, and aid in emotional regulation. The proprioceptive system provides sensory information about body position, movement, and force. It brings awareness to children's bodies and their environments around them. Activities can include climbing structures, tactile materials, and opportunities for pushing and pulling. They can help them understand where their different body parts are, how they move, how much strength their muscles need to use to do that activity. Interoceptive sensory elements involve the perception of internal bodily sensations. So hunger, thirst, heart rate, breathing, and emotions. And when designing spaces for early childhood education, it's important to provide comfortable spaces for children that aid in that decision-making process. So in the left photo, this was an existing tree on the site, and to elevate and make that space more comfortable in the shade, we added a tree bench. So that was kind of a brief overview of our design process, the goals, and best practices. And we wanted to kind of encapsulate that into 2 case studies. So this first project, Ellis Early Learning, is a project in Jamaica Plain, which is a neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts. The size of this play area is 1,800 square feet, which is relatively small. If you go to the next slide, thank you, Sam. The existing space had faded and cracking poured rubber. It had 1 climbing structure, 1 shade structure, and it was adjacent to a parking lot. So the client really wanted to provide a space with a variety of sensory elements and natural materials, and overall make the space more welcoming. The main goals were to create an inviting space with natural elements, emphasize safety and security, support their pedagogy, and also focus on child-centric design. The renovation strategy included creating a sensory-rich environment that facilitated physical, social, and cognitive development. So we included this by providing various tactile materials like a poured rubber trike track, but we changed the color to more of a natural color. Sand for discovery and exploration, and artificial turf, which has, you know, a green color and kind of creates a natural look and feel, but also acts as a safety surface. So to stimulate the sense of smell, we added aromatic plants. We also incorporated gardening boxes for teachers and children to plant vegetables, which can help them learn about food growth. The design also incorporated elements for vestibular stimulation, such as the horizontal logs along the sand edge. We included a climbing structure for proprioception and diverse shading elements, such as a pergola and trees.
Another case study, or the second case study, I should say, is the Little School at Lincoln School. We worked with the Lincoln School in Providence, Rhode Island, which is an all-girls preparatory school, to design their new Little School. Their campus includes elementary and middle school and an early childhood education. The Little School is a building on that campus and was created as a dedicated building for the younger kids, which previously operated in the elementary building. And this allowed them to increase their capacity for the program. This is a very sustainable building. It was LEED Gold certified. It is a net zero energy building. So there are 100 solar panels covering more than 44% of the roof surface area, which supply enough energy to exceed the site's annual demand. The remaining portion of the roof is clad in a high reflectance material with an SRI, which stands for Solar Reflective Index, of value of 98 to reduce heat island effect. The school's building management system tracks the energy usage and displays the data on a screen in their lobby, or what we call the Fiesta, because it has more than one use. Passive design strategies included a maximized north-south building orientation, south-facing overhang, floor-to-ceiling glazing with a window to wall ratio of 20% and a high performance envelope. Additionally, the school donated 7,500 square feet of untouched woodland to the adjacent Blackstone Valley Conservation District as a part of a land swap. In exchange, the school kept previously developed land for continued use as additional parking. Next slide. And we have a short 3-minute video that goes into detail a bit more and describes the process of BuildUp School and has some really fun clips of what the school looks like inside with children inhabiting it.
Collaboration with MLA was everything from what we pedagogically needed to have happen here daily, how the design of the building would allow us to best do that. They really listened to the needs of our teachers, the needs of our program, and making sure that the building aligned with the mission of the school. It took all of our our tenets of Quaker education, being Reggio inspired, who we are as a program, and how we value relationships. All of that was very well thought of in the design of this space.
At the scale of the campus, we were really trying to help create a new outdoor space that linked the younger children with the elementary school. We were trying to give this piece of the campus a more coherent look. The Quaker heritage of the Lincoln School puts a lot of emphasis on environmental stewardship, emphasis on simplicity and on community. So we really took those to heart. Those are aligned with our values in terms of every building that we design. So I think it was a great partnership, and we really tried to reflect those in every aspect of the building, from the overall building layout, the materiality, the detailing, and the fact that this is a LEED certified building and a net zero energy building.
One thing working at Studio MLA, you learn quickly the importance of designing from a child and teacher's perspective. When we're thinking about the height of windows, it's important to set it down low so children can look outside. The floor should be soft and warm, maybe even textured, since toddlers spend most of their time on the floor. And in terms of teacher visibility, wall openings so teachers can have total eyesight over the classroom.
This is our piazza. It is our gathering place for events. It is where our families drop off. This space was originally designed to be a Reggio studio, but we have been using this as a classroom. All of our classrooms spill out into the playground.
It has all different components in it that serve a variety of needs and goals for the children. The whole space is designed to be really open-ended and to give the kids an opportunity to practice lots of different skills. It's great to see kids using the space because no matter what, they will use the space in a way that you didn't think of, and it's kind of amazing.
Over the fence encounters happen all the time. We use this space in so many different ways. We actually put an outdoor carpet out here and we use it for morning meeting. They take stories on the porch. Parents will meet out here with teachers, so we use the space in many different ways. Everyone loves beautiful space. Children deserve beautiful space to work in. Teachers deserve beautiful space designed for its purpose, and that is exactly what we have in this building.
Thank you for sharing that video and for helping us get such a wonderful understanding of the work that Studio MLA has done. I am going to take a couple minutes to help us answer some questions from the question and answer. So again, if you have any questions regarding this presentation, we're going to take a couple of minutes now to try to answer those live. I did see one question asking about how much the cost was in total and per square feet. Folks at Studio MLA, I think that question was in regard to the Ellis Early Learning Project. Do you have an answer for that one?
Yeah, so the project for installing the playground items, surfacing, fencing, and landscaping for just construction was $86,000. I am not sure if that included the demolition.
Okay. You said 86,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were the childcare center actually did a really good job of working with their landlord. So the owner of the building also did contribute some funds to things like demolition, and they repainted the building on that side of the building, which really helped the way it looked and felt as well. So
yeah. Do you all recall about how much per square foot that came out to? A rough estimate, maybe?
Well, I think it was 1,500 square feet. So 90,000 divided by 1,500.
so it's something like $60 or $70 a square foot. But this was they definitely had a very tight budget, and it was, you know, done on a shoestring for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. I also saw another question come up regarding the sand play that we saw and how we can incorporate that into settings that will be approved by state licensing. And it looks like covering the covering the sand with some tarp is what can protect that. Are there other solutions that you have seen working with centers?
I think it depends on, you know, the shape of the sand play, but definitely if it's more of like a natural sand play area, like the dry stream bed that we showed, providing a tarp, it would need to be custom cut so that it fits in that space with like weighted edges. That's one solution that we've come up with.
I would also say that even within one state, like within California, from region to region, even from licensor to licensor, there's sometimes different interpretations of what's acceptable for covering the sand. But I think what we found is the programs who really believe that that's an important component in their program find a way to make it work. So although it's important up front to understand the licensing environment that you're in, so that you know how complex and how simple you want to make the strategies.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I don't see any other questions in the chat, but we welcome them. We can also reply via email. I want to take a couple of moments just to reflect on that presentation where I learned, so much about what the possibility could look like when we are investing in high quality design that is really geared specifically for young children and the early care and learning that happens in those spaces. I noticed that the spaces really looked like they were made for child-led activities, which we know is so important for kiddos in those first 5 years to be able to develop a sense of autonomy and independence. For those of us with the background in early care and learning, we talk about how preschool and those first 5 years are a fundamental space for learning pro-social behaviors like waiting, taking turns. And I just saw so many opportunities for children to be able to practice those skills in a natural way. And I love that I saw so much natural light and natural elements and an overall connection to nature with these spaces. It's critical for positive physical and mental health. And I'm so proud to see that across the nation, communities are investing in these spaces. And so I am going to share a couple of funding opportunities that we know about here in California. I am going to share my screen with just two opportunities that we know of, and feel free to share in the chat if you know of any other opportunities. But we have learned that in Napa County, there is a forgivable loan for childcare infrastructure that is still currently seeking applications. And in Santa Clara County, we have learned of a grant program that is supporting childcare expansion as well as operation and facilities funding for current childcare operators who are in Santa Clara County. So in a follow-up email, we will share this slide so you can have those links, and I'm happy to share the links in the chat as well. And I also invite you all to continue and join us in our advocacy journey as BuildUp California, making sure that our state legislature is recognizing how vital and important it is to continue funding the state infrastructure grant program. We have heard a lot of success stories across the state from providers who might even be in this room with us today, about how amazing it's been to have some funding to be able to reinvest in the work and the care that they provide for our community. So we are looking forward to advocating for about $50 million in the upcoming legislative cycle. And if you would like to learn more, stay engaged with us on social media, in our newsletter, and attending these webinars. We will continue to uplift the advocacy efforts and support that is needed to make sure that we are continuing to invest in the needs of our young children, their families, and their caregivers. With that, I will pass it on to Esmeralda to wrap up our conversation, unless there are any other questions. I will take a pause there.
Thank you, Pamela. And I believe that Matthew shared in the chat that he is happy to share some more information about what's happening in Santa Clara. So I am going to unmute him so that he can share a few minutes. We still have a little time. So Matthew, I will go ahead and do that. So hope you're ready. Go. Please feel free to unmute and share.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Excellent. Hi, my name is Matt Tinsley. I work at the Santa Clara County Office of Education, and we are the construction consultants for Valley Health Foundation, which is the fiscal agent for the Child Care Expansion Grant here in Santa Clara County. So the County Board of Supervisors took $15 million worth of ARPA money and is turning it into a $12.5 million grant program. About 60% of that money is going to be used for facilities improvements for essentially any childcare provider in Santa Clara County, although I think they're going to any licensed childcare provider in Santa Clara County. The goal is to increase capacity for infants and toddlers, increase capacity for children with disabilities. Because it is ARPA money, it has to be connected to COVID relief in some way. And so there's a pre-eligibility sort of screening that includes whether or not your physical location is in an identified COVID impacted census tract. The deadline for applications is November the 30th. So far, they have had, I think, over 700 expressions of interest or attempts to sort of complete the pre-eligibility screening form. And by way of comparison, we have just shy of 2,000 licensed family care, 2,000 licensed child care providers in Santa Clara County. What else can I tell you? There's a cap of $200,000 for family child care homes, and a cap of, I think, $1.25 million for centers. And so obviously that's quite a lot of money for a family child care home, not a great deal of money for a center. For those of you not from California or the Bay Area, our current cost of construction for childcare facilities in Santa Clara County is about $650 a square foot. And I think that's pretty much everything I have. I think the website for the program is in the chat, so feel free to take a look at that. And hopefully we'll have more that we can share, probably, I would think, maybe March, once we have a sense from Valley Health Foundation of who have been successful in their applications. All right, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate you sharing that. And I saw that while you were speaking in the chat, Blanca you had a message in the chat about this, and I will send you an email directly. So thank you for that. Also in the chat, I saw from Fran, County of San Luis Obispo, a startup grant for childcare operators was dropped in on there. So thank you for sharing that resource. We are going to share these things after the meeting to folks so that everyone can have access to all of this information, so that you can take a look at it after the meeting. And with that being said, I really want to just thank all of our presenters who are here today. Mike, Maddie, and Kylie, who did such an amazing job sharing these spaces. As a former teacher, I totally appreciate these spaces and wish that all of the children of California and across the nation could have spaces like this for their learning. Huge thank you to all of you for all the incredible work that's happening at Studio MLA. It's amazing. We know this work goes hand in hand with our own mission at BuildUp California of expanding, improving, and sustaining early care facilities throughout the state. And so now we really hope that you can share your thoughts with us. We are going to drop in the chat a short 3 to 5 minute survey. Really, it will not take longer than 3 minutes. If you could please just click on the link and share your thoughts on the meeting. We'll play some music as we are coming out of the meeting. And again, thank you so much for being here today in community with us today. We look forward to the next time in 2024. And with that being said, I wish you all a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you so much to Studio MLA. Have a great day.